Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next session of the Winter Intersession Career Development Academy. Today, we're going to be talking about job searching and talking about all the particulars that go into that and just kind of how to explore the best ways to find the opportunities that you're most interested in. We will leave time for questions, but feel free to put questions into the chat as we are going through anything that I'm talking about today. And then also, if you have time available for the rest of today, we do have 2 more sessions. And at the end, I'll show you again what those upcoming sessions will be as well. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. Let me just pull up the slideshow here. Okay. So today's workshop is going to be about the job searching is not searching for job titles, and really the idea of wanting you to reframe your job search. And this is more of a kind of an exercise to kind of get your mind thinking in a different way about doing the job search. So what I'm going to do real quickly is just kind of go through here the things kind of talking about. So I'll do a quick poll of everybody here, talk about, a really good approach to kind of take with this, orientation, how you can orient your kind of thinking and your mindset to have about it, common places to look for jobs, where to look and who to ask, and then giving you an idea or a way to kind of keep track of it all. And I'll get into that as well. So if everybody could kind of think about into the chat, where do you go and look for jobs? So if you can start putting, words into the chat. Is there a place that you find that's really, really good for looking for jobs? Is it a place that you, have always used as a go-to place? So if you start putting those things into the chat of where do you go to look for jobs when you're thinking to yourself, I'm doing a job search. So we have LinkedIn, company websites, Chronicle. Handshake, company websites, Indeed, LinkedIn. Okay, good. Consulting firms, DevX, LinkedIn. Great, thanks. So these are all things that we want to kind of be thinking about and knowing, these are trusted go-to places, good resources. But if there's something you don't know about, maybe you're going to learn from one of your classmates here of something you didn't think about. So another question I want to ask you is, what are places where you have found jobs? And what I mean by this here is this is different than the job board, but what are the places where you have found jobs in the past? And when I say find jobs, I also want to think about too as opportunities. So what are places, what are things, what do you find to be the most effective places for searching for jobs? All right. Well, maybe I stumped you on this one. So let's go to one more question. Oh, sorry. So one more thought, and it wasn't as heavy as a poll, but more of a question in terms of to everyone that's here within the group is to say, how confident do you feel on a scale of say 1 to 10 of your abilities to do a good job search? So, you can give a percentage or things like that. And again, this is not to say how effective your job search is, but more along the lines to say it's like how sure are you about the confidence in kind of doing a job search. So and again, you don't have to put it here into the chat if you feel like you want to, that would be good. But I want you to kind of think about that in terms of, as we go through the rest of this, is just to kind of think how confident do you feel in going through your job search, and what is it that you need to be maybe doing to make yourself feel a little bit better. Caroline, thank you for saying 80%. I think that's great to hear. All right. So I want to talk about the first approach with doing the job search, and what I think is somewhat, in many ways, the best approach. Now, with this said, this does not mean that any approach is wrong or right. You want to find the one that you think is the most effective. So I like to kind of give you this imagery of a kind of the iceberg image, which is, right above the surface. These are the jobs that you can find posted on websites. These are the jobs that you're going to see. These are the things that you're going to find. But if we think about a lot of times with doing a job search, a lot of times the jobs that are available are the ones that are below the surface. Those are the ones that you're going to find through networking, through word of mouth, through a referral. One piece of advice that I heard long ago from a recruiter when they were doing an information session with students was the student mentioned and said, we really have noticed that the jobs that are posted on your website are ones that we're not qualified for, that we don't have enough experience, we don't have enough skills yet to do what the job is asking for. And what that recruiter said, she says, you have to think of that. What is posted sometimes is a snapshot in time of what we are recruiting for. It also too is maybe an indicator of the jobs that we have not filled through networking, word of mouth, or referrals. And she said we have a robust referral network. We encourage our employees to find colleagues, find people that they know to apply to the jobs. And the ones that you see posted are the ones that we haven't filled through those means. And it really kind of struck me as a really good piece and good advice and good information to kind of think about, is to not feel like you have to be limited by the job that you're seeing posted somewhere, but to know too that there is potential for more jobs and more things to kind of look at. All right, so that's one kind of approach, is to kind of know that there is more than what's kind of on the surface. Another way I want you to think about the job search is this kind of starting broad and going more narrow. So this idea of a reverse pyramid approach. So going from general to specific, looking at what are your areas of interest, what are your areas of non-interest, what are the different types of public health industries that are out there, what are the companies that are falling within the industries that I'm interested in, and then before you start applying, doing some information gathering. So it's the idea of almost doing a lit review for your job search. And what I want you to think about this is there's a lot of information out there that you can find, but you want to find things that are going to be helping you to reach to the goal that you want to get to at the end. And then I want you to be thinking and doing some reflecting as part of this job search. So thinking through some of these questions that you're asking yourself. So one of the questions I would say is to ask yourself, why did I come to Bloomberg in the first place? What was I hoping to get to do, or what was I hoping to learn from my degree training in the next job that I want to get? And then another question to say is, have my job or career expectations changed? I can tell you countless stories and conversations that I've had with students that have come to the school thinking they want to do one thing, and then realizing after learning about a subject matter or learning more about a particular way that public health work is done, that they become much more intrigued, much more interested in something that, and they had never thought or was never on their radar. So I want you to kind of keep in mind that that is a norm. That's not the exception. It is common for students to have a changing perspective on what it is that they want to do. And then also say, what are the new skills? What are the new interests that I've developed since I've been here? And these are questions you can be asking yourself all throughout the time. So if you started in the fall, you may have had 4 to 5 months now of coursework that you've learned a little bit more about what it is that you would be interested in. So use that information, use that as a way to kind of guide what it is that you're looking for and what you have an interest in. All right, so if this idea of a pyramid, everything's kind of stacked this way, I do want you to think a little bit differently in terms of this reverse pyramid approach, which is starting with the question is, what is my interest? So now public health, because it is so broad, you can have a lot of different interests. And that can be somewhat the challenge too, is your interests are interfering with your ability to be able to know which direction to go. Oh, I find that I'm interested kind of in everything. I'm interested in, this topic and this topic, and I want to work in this area, I want to work in this country, I want to work on this disease or something like that. And so another question you could say is, what do I know that I'm not interested in? What is it that I can eliminate? What is it that I've done before that I don't necessarily need to do again? What is it that I know that I've had some experience with and I realize, that's just not a fit for me, excuse me, in terms of what it is I want to do. And then the next part will be is, what are then the industries that match my interest? Public health has industries that range from consulting to healthcare to nonprofits to foundations to think tanks to government to federal government, state and local government, tribal government, the NGOs. So there's a very broad range of industries that companies fall into, and a lot of times the companies have cross sections of industries that they work in both spaces, or they might identify as one and seem similar to something else. So knowing too, like what seem to be the right kind of fits. And another industry is academia, and not academics from a faculty standpoint, but from a research standpoint. And then once you start to kind of narrow down what some of those industries are, then what can I find and how can I find companies that are in those industries? The ways to kind of do this is to really kind of think about, if I can identify one, I might be able to then identify 4 or 5 more after that. Or we can share with you suggestions to say, is like, well, if I'm thinking about this type of company, okay, what industry do they fall into? What are some other companies that fall into that? And then the last part of it, and this kind of gets down to the last little piece of this, is kind of this idea is, do I know anyone there? And we'll talk in other sessions, a little bit more kind of how to do that and identify those folks. But this idea is that you do have to kind of start, focusing in on any one of these areas, and you might have different stages of where you are at with figuring this out. But if you can get to that point to where I've identified an interest, I've identified an industry, I've identified a company, and now I'm looking to see who I can talk to about it. So one way to kind of think about kind of doing this, again, not everyone's approach is going to necessarily be the same, but I think this is a really good one to use with thinking about it. Another thing that I think is important that you want to be aware of with doing the job search is the orientation of your mindset, the way that you are thinking about what way that you're going to be doing this job or doing this job search. So the ways that I like to think about your job search is it's a past-oriented search. So what it is that you are basing your search based on what you've done in the past, versus a future-oriented job search, which is based on what you think you will do in the future. So if we think about this in the regards of that, oftentimes in public health, you may have never done that job before. So you might have more of a future-oriented job search. This is a new thing that I want to be doing. But you also too can be aware that I can have a past-oriented job search, that I can find work that's similar to what I've done before. And when we start to kind of compare these two kind of mindsets of the job search, one of the things is that with a past-oriented job search, you can be selling or promoting your experience plus your new education, your new training that you receive is your, I guess, more of kind of your value added. Your degree training is maybe confirming what it is that you have experience in, that your education is kind of filling in the gap of something that you didn't have before and making you a better candidate for a job that you might be interested in. But if we think about it from the future-oriented side of it, you're more selling your academic training. You're more selling what you have the potential to do. You're more selling your ability to be able to take this training that you've gotten so far and apply it to the work that's done within an organization. So in some ways, then your degree becomes your biggest selling piece. Your degree is what you want to be promoting about yourself and saying about yourself. But this also too can drive the thinking that you have in your job search. When you think about I'm going to search for jobs that are based on the area of interest that I have and the degree that I'm getting. And I'm not going to maybe so much be concerned about the either amount of experience that I have or the limited experience that I have, or maybe not directly related experience, but I can search for areas that I'm interested in, then you're going to find commonality with people that are working in that field. And then what you're going to do eventually over time, through these various steps, is hopefully find people that are doing work in that field, express to them that you're ready to work in that field, and that your degree has adequately prepared you for it. So when we think about a pass-oriented job search, you're also trying to demonstrate through that kind of perspective is that I'm the most prepared and the best qualified candidate. I have the experience that's needed. I now have this degree that's going to be value added. It's going to be a way for me to be able to demonstrate that I can put both things into practice. And then a future-oriented job search is that, again, you're showing that you're prepared for this new job. It's something new. I haven't done this before, but I feel like I'm ready to do it. Here's what I've learned from my coursework. Here's what I've been able to apply from my coursework that I can now think that I can do for in this new job. Oftentimes, when we think about this, is that sometimes these first jobs that you're going to get can be good stepping stone jobs. And what I mean by this is that I don't want to, it's not so much a step back, but it's just like, what can I do to build traction in that particular area of public health? What is it that I can do? So it might be that this first job is not a job you're going to be at for a long time. And a lot we have is our recent graduates usually change jobs 2 to 3 times in the first couple of years after they graduate. And there's very reasons why I think this happens. I think part of it happens is because an individual is being able to demonstrate and show that they can take on more within the job. Maybe they're being promoted from within the organization, or the person is gaining some experience. They're learning more about how to do the work, and then they're building their network of people that they know. And then if an opportunity comes along, they're able to be referred to that because they have some experience and they know people in that field. So know too that that first job you're going to get is not the job you're going to stay at for a long time, but just know this is a continuing process that might be going on in the first couple of years after you graduate. And then also too, if you think of a future-oriented job search, well, how can that future-oriented job search kind of fill in the gap between where you are and where you want to be? So this idea that your job search can be oriented to the idea is that it doesn't have to have everything that I need all in one, but it's going to give me some experience that I'm going to be able to put into my toolkit and that I'm going to be able to use and apply and use in my next phase of the job search. So with this, you don't have to so much, again, show that you're the most qualified. You just have to really show that you are the most interested in wanting to do this work and that you really are demonstrating that I want to learn how to do this. And I really want to learn how that this opportunity in this particular job is going to be a good fit for that. So again, this is kind of, again, the orientation of the mindset to go into the job search. This may apply, maybe not in every case, but I think when you start thinking in that way, which one do I fit into? Which one do I look at? That can also to change the way that you look at the information that you can find that's available. Right. I'd also like you to think about reframing your job search, not as I'm looking for a job, but I'm looking for an opportunity. And when you say that, when you think of it as I'm looking for an opportunity to put into practice what it is that I've learned, that can then expand what the reach is. It could be a job, it could be an internship, it could be a fellowship, it could be a project, it could be a consultancy, any number of different things. But if you can think of the way that you kind of are explaining what you're looking for as an opportunity search, that also too would maybe even open up the lens of what other people might be considering for it. Because somebody you might meet with or talk with doesn't have a job that they can hire for, but they have plenty of work. And if you're willing to take some short-term opportunities to get a full-time job later on and kind of prove your worth, that's a good way to kind of think about doing this and kind of reframing the thinking with the job search. All right. So let me go run through some of these kind of common places that anybody can look for jobs. So one of the big places you can look for Indeed. So go to Indeed, put a search in, you can find any number of different types of jobs that would be there. Another one is ZipRecruiter. So you can go into ZipRecruiter, type in any type of job search title, see any number of different things and learn a little bit more about a job. And you could probably find similar information in ZipRecruiter that you could probably find in Indeed. Glassdoor is another one if you're not familiar with that. Glassdoor is a great place to look for jobs. Also, Glassdoor is a great place to get salary information and get feedback information about different types of employers. And again, this is based from the job seeker perspective. You can do a Google search. So you can search in Google and look for jobs within Google as well, and see what job opportunities are posted there. And Google, what it will do sometimes is kind of comb the searches from all these other search engines as well. So, by all means, you can use Google. You can use monster.com. You can use Simply Hired is another one. You put in any type of job title. And again, these aren't particular to public health. These are just any kind of jobs, but you can find public health jobs in here if you wanted to. It might be a harder search, but you can certainly do that. You can use something like Career Builder. Flex Jobs is a newer one that's kind of out there, but this is a go-to site for anybody that wants to work from home, looking for flexible job opportunities. A lot of different jobs in there as well that you can search for, especially if you're wanting to remain remote with doing the work, which I would say is also not a bad thing to be looking at. Especially not every job is going to require you to be back in the office now. And then another place, and I think it was mentioned a couple of times in the chat, was LinkedIn Jobs. So LinkedIn Jobs is a really great place to go to look for jobs that are being posted by companies. A reference to something that was mentioned yesterday in our the networking sessions that were done, somebody's asking, do I need the premium version to do the job search in LinkedIn? And our presenter said he didn't really think as a job seeker it's that necessary for the premium. The premium is really used for the recruiters to source candidates and look for candidates. But you as a job seeker, you can certainly find all the jobs that are posted in there, build connections with people that are recruiting at these places. But know too, LinkedIn is a place that many recruiters now are going to post jobs and to source candidates as well. And then some of the more public health kind of job search sites that you can go to. So there's publichealthjobs.org is a place that you can go in to look for different jobs. You can use the APHA Public Health Career Mart. So you can go in there and look for jobs that are not just jobs that are posted by APHA, but kind of all over, all the members that are in there, they post jobs in there. So it could be organizations, academic institutions, research organizations, different ones that are there. ASTO, the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials. If you're looking for something more in the public sector, this would be one. USA Jobs, it's not here, but I think that's one that many people look at as well. DevX, if you're looking for work in international development, Interaction for NGOs. Relief Web is another one. So these, again, you kind of can go through these different kind of job boards and maybe see similar information in different places, and just know that these are some of the places where jobs are posted. Now, what I say about this is to kind of take what you have in here and not utilize it as the only way you're going to kind of do this. But when you go through these different job boards, just to start to navigate to see, are these places that I'm interested in, and I'm noticing that there's opportunities there. I am noticing that things are being posted from either these different organizations as a whole, or on these different job boards. And so when we think about this in terms of kind of where to look, I go through that idea is how can I kind of narrow that information down? How can I narrow down the broad and make it more targeted in what I want? And so one of the things I can suggest that you look at and pay attention to is our public health career fair. And we can share with you a list of all the employers that were at last year's career fair. And so, but these were some of the industries that were represented. And again, this idea of going, how can I choose an industry first and then find organizations that would be under that? And you'll see it's the consulting, the government, the healthcare, the NGOs, the nonprofits and different things like that, and research as well. And then we also think that these are different public health organizations that we've worked with, or ones that you might already be familiar with, and ones that from any number of different things that about where people work or where people have been. You can look to see who the organizations that participated in either information sessions or industry days with us in the fall. Know too that these organizations, whether they are participating in the industry day or doing information session, are interested in recruiting public health students, and they are interested in recruiting students from our school. So that's also too a way to kind of narrow down that search and just to say, if this is an organization that might be interested in somebody within our school or in public health students, well, what are other organizations that are similar to these? And maybe I can use that as a way to figure out, other organizations besides the ones that are listed here as well. And then, we have similar organizations from our fall 2021, information sessions as well. And with some of these organizations, these are repeat customers. So it's like CMS is one that actively recruits with us all the time, and you'll see them at our career fair. I think we're having a representative from them give a presentation this week. So, you're going to find that there are repeat customers. You're going to find that there are organizations that are you actively wanting to try to, always interested in looking for public health students. And you can use that as a guide to let you know, okay, this might be an area, an industry of interest or an organization of interest for myself. Another good way that you can kind of search for and look for information is using your Handshake account. So within Handshake, if kind of logging in, you can start to do kind of those searches, but you're going to filter down the search. And so what I mean by this is, choose a search based on maybe look for an organization. So you can search an employer and see if they have any jobs, or you can search for a particular type of work that you're interested in, or by a geographic location. Or it's just a way to learn a little bit more about what could be a potential opportunity that they have. And again, I would take this as, I'm not asking you to look for the job titles. I'm only asking you to look for the employers. I'm only asking you to look through who's posted to say, oh, what can I learn more about this particular organization? And then what I can maybe learn from the job description is more of like, what are the skills that are necessary? So that if I do get to the point that I want to apply to something, what is it that I need to know? What is it I think that they're kind of looking for? But again, I don't want you to search for analyst, intern, epidemiology all the time, because the opportunity that's here to look a lot, or the opportunity that's listed here as a job title may not match a similar opportunity at another type of organization as well. So what I want you to kind of, again, use this as a resource to where avoid looking for the job titles, but more focus on the organization, what they do, what industries they fall into, how does it fit into what type of job search that I'm trying to conduct for myself. All right. What I have here, so this is a list of various organizations, falling into different industries. And so you can use these various lists based on, if you're interested in consulting, do I want to do bio? Do I want to do life sciences consulting? Do I want to do technical consulting? There's strategic management consulting. There's healthcare consulting. If I'm interested in state and local government, what are the different organizations that fall within that, whether they are a state agency, whether they're a federal agency. So there's a lot of variation within there as well. And again, these are all organizations that I'm listing that have worked with or have recruited with the School of Public Health in our Career Services Office over the past, say, 4 to 5 years. So we just try to collect these and kind of put them together. Maybe they came to a career fair. Maybe they just posted jobs with us. Maybe they've done some activity with us as well. So healthcare, again, different type of industry. And you'll notice that it ranges from a health insurance company to a, something with Johns Hopkins to something with, Tufts, so it could be health systems, it could be insurance, it could be, even pharmaceutical can kind of fall into this as well. Similar organizations, international affairs and NGOs. Again, the management consulting, sometimes the large ones like, Boston Strategic Partners is a larger one, but there might be some smaller ones that you're not too sure about. Nonprofits, lots of different organizations in here. And so what I think about with all of this is it's good to go to these websites and just kind of explore and see what they do, what their work is. Don't go to the job board. Don't go to the jobs. Don't go to the career site yet. Not until you're ready to start applying. You can take a quick little browse and look at it, but don't go immediately there to look to see, do they have any jobs that I want to apply to? Because oftentimes you might get frustrated that the level of jobs that they're looking for might not be what your need, or you're going to find that it's very limiting and there's not anything posted at that particular time. But you can always kind of come back to these things at a later time. But there is another piece of this that we can kind of talk about with this when kind of going through the different organizations to look at. So more organizations here, more websites to kind of check out, more ways to kind of see if I'm interested in one, what's something else that could be very similar to them if I wasn't familiar with them to begin with. All right. I'll touch on this really, really briefly, but this is also too a really good way that you could maximize and use Google to your advantage. So if you type in the name of an employer and put Johns Hopkins, sometimes you can find an alum or somebody that's affiliated with that particular organization. Another way too is you can find a similar organizations to something you're interested in. So don't be afraid to kind of use Google as another kind of search engine for yourself to find organizations you might be interested in. And that's what the idea of like people also search for it. I think this is a really helpful tool to kind of give you some ideas of similar organizations you might be interested in. All right. Another way you can think about your job search is to look at, where do our alumni work and what is it that they do and what are the maybe the organizations that they're a part of. So one of the things that we have here based on our career outcomes data is to say, well, within an industry, here's the name of an employer, and we're listing the job titles here, but I would almost in some ways say, you don't have to focus as much on that because again, these are snapshots in time of when we're asking them. The people that filled out the survey at the time, they might not be in those roles any longer. But one of the things you can see with this is, if I'm interested in academia and research, well, here's where some of our alumni have gone in terms of work. You're going to see a lot of our alumni continue to work for the school. So don't be afraid to, think of Hopkins as a potential employer for yourself kind of down the road, knowing too that there's a track record of that happening fairly frequently with students graduating from our school. Other types of academic institutions that people can look at. These are some of the consulting companies that you can look at as well. And again, using that, any type of list that you find, and using this data, using this information to say, well, here's another one that I can consider. Here's another one that I can consider. Federal government agencies, healthcare organizations, healthcare organizations for those graduating with doctoral degrees, state and local government, nonprofits and NGOs. Okay. So before I get to this kind of last little part of it, any questions from anybody on anything that I've talked about so far? Anything go back and talk about? See if there's anything like that. Chat. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, would you be able to provide some talking points for like when we reach out to alumni that work at a specific like company or do the job that we want? Like, how should we even approach them and just ask for tips or advice on getting a job where they work?
Yep. So our later session today, we're going to be kind of talking that about like preparing the job search, how to kind of navigate and do an information interview. I can just say very quickly in terms of what to do with this is utilize the information that you can find ahead of time, so that if you are going to make the outreach to an alum or to someone that's working at an organization, that it makes a lot of sense for why you're reaching out to them, and that that their work or where they work or the type of work that goes on with their organization is one that you would be the most interested in. Yes, I will be sharing. Will you be sent the PowerPoint? Yes, I'll share out the PowerPoint. Okay. All right. Sure. So one of the things, if I go back to all of these various slides, so I mean, it's a lot of names of organizations, a lot of websites and different things to kind of look at. And a lot of it might, kind of seem like, well, how do I kind of stay on top of everything that could be out there? So one of the ways that and we can give you this as a kind of a resource to use. So I don't know how many of you may be familiar with this idea of the 2-hour job search. So it's a science-based approach to getting that first interview. So the 2-hour job search is actually based on a book by an author, Steve Dalton, who really developed and put together this very kind of detailed step-by-step process for helping somebody kind of get to the stage of getting to that first interview. So if it's a book you are familiar with, by all means, use it as kind of a reference for what I'm going to talk about here. If it's a book that you might be wanting to get, it's a really good kind of resource. But one of the things that I pulled out from this book and I really thought was really helpful was one of these methods that he has in there to kind of keep track of this information. So what he has from the book is the LAMP method. And LAMP stands for List, Alumni, Motivation, and Posting. And so part of what you're wanting to do here is you're wanting to be kind of thinking about how can you keep track of maybe potential connections that you're going to get when doing your job search. And so when we think about the list and we think about, the different things in there, like, okay, how do I potentially apply that to things that are related to me in terms of what I want to do? And so this is an example of what it would be is that, the list, the L is the list of the organizations that you might have of interest. The Y or the alumni is, are there alumni that work there? Yes or no? How motivated am I to want to work at this organization on a scale of 1 to 5? And then how many postings are there at that organization? And so part of what you do with this is when you kind of go through it, and if I were to develop this based on, kind of for Bloomberg students, it would be the idea is that I want to develop my list of employers that I have of interest. So whoever those employers are, I'm going to start kind of building that list. And then the next thing I'm going to do in the A column is I'm going to start to identify or look for alumni that are at this organization. And maybe I'm going to, search someone's LinkedIn profile, but I'm just going to kind of notice how many alumni are at this particular organization. And then I'm going to rate for myself at this particular organization, how motivated am I to want to work there on a scale of 1 to 5? And then how many job postings are there? And then also too, I can add to this sheet, the industry that this organization is in, and then maybe the website that I'm going to visit. And then part of what you do, anything that has a high number, so anything that has, a high motivation, a high number of postings, and then they have alumni there, well, then those should be the targeted organizations at first. And then what you can do is you can always update and revise this list. You can always come back to it as this list as here's what I need to focus my attention on. Here's where I need to explore. Here are the places that I think they're going to match my area of interest, that there's a high likelihood that they might accept or be interested in Bloomberg student. I'm motivated to want to work there, and they have posting at this time. And so I'll share this, as a resource with everyone as well, so you can have it, or you can build your own. So, feel free to kind of whatever, way you're keeping track of anything, certainly do that. But this is, to me, one way that's good to do it. And it not so much based on the job titles that you're searching for, but it's based on the organization, areas of interest, and how motivated you want to be there and how many job postings they might have. All right. So again, this is just a quick snapshot of what something like that would look like. So in conclusion, I just want to kind of go back to this idea is that just in the title of the talk. So job searching is not about looking only for job titles. If you're searching only for job titles, you might become very frustrated and not find what it is you're looking for. So if we think about the searching for websites is a good start to gather the information. Searching for the organizations that are a fit for what you might want to do, an organization that falls into the industry that you have an interest in wanting to go into. And then thinking about that, job searching is about looking for places and then looking for people in those places. And so We'll talk a little bit more about that in some of the upcoming sessions and kind of how to do that and kind of what to do with it. But if you want to kind of think about the job search as a place search and a people search more than anything else, that's the best approach, I think, to take with that. And so when we think about this search, it's focusing, kind of on who can I build connections with? Who can I build relationships with? Who can I learn from that is doing something that I might be interested in? And that's going to lead to some of those conversations that you're going to have, maybe doing information on interviews, doing a Zoom meeting or something like that as well. All right. Are there any questions or anything that I could touch on or talk more about that was shared so far? Well, feel free to put something in the chat. What I just want to make sure that you do know is that our next sessions that we have later on today. So preparing for the job search is, kind of the going through some of those steps and then talking about the proactive plan of doing a job search and knowing that maybe for many of you, the next 6 months are going to be when you're looking for jobs. But you can frame this job search at any, use whatever kind of time frame that you kind of need. But it is a good idea to kind of build in a plan. And so that's what we're going to try to talk about in the next sessions as well. But we look forward to having you join us for our next ones. And then the idea that, the job search, is very much an opportunity search as well. So just kind of having that framework that you go into. And again, is my job search future oriented, past oriented? What industries am I more interested in? What industries am I not interested in? And then as you kind of narrow those things down and get closer and closer to that, that's when you can start thinking about how to find people that are working in those places. And I could say probably for a good number of you, the job that you get when you graduate is not a job that you had in mind that you wanted to get, that you thought you were going to get to when you started. So, all right. Any other questions? If anybody, come off mute or anything like that, we'll put something into the chat.
I have a quick question. So you mentioned that connecting with people that at the companies or organization that you might be interested in. When you mentioned us like connection, does that mean like we could have a little like 15-minute chat and that's sufficient, or do you recommend that continuously like keeping in touch or anything?
Yeah, so I think it's part of what you're doing with this is the initial conversation you might have with someone is not going to immediately lead to you moving any closer to getting a job. And so what you want to be thinking about is how can I maybe plant the seed in someone's head that I'm looking for something in the area that they're involved in or the area that they work in or the organization that they're with. In terms of the maintaining the connections, it's going to be your personal preference of how to do it, but sometimes it might be is just giving them an update about what you're doing, just letting them know that you are still looking for opportunities to do work, but you're depending on how the conversation ends and depending on kind of how the conversation is going, you can decide then how much or how little you'd want to share there.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for coming and look forward to seeing you at our upcoming sessions that we have later on today. And yeah, thanks so much and have a good one.
Thank you.